Good morning, everyone. Hello again. Welcome back. My name is Shelly. I'm a physiotherapist and a education and support coordinator at the Parkinson Society BC. Thanks for joining us for our third class of our freezing exercise series. Next class will be our last session. So it's gone by very quick, but hopefully you've all enjoyed the class so far. Before we start today, I just want to remind everybody that the chat box is where you can ask questions if you do have any. So the chat box would either be on your right-hand side of your screen, or if you're on a slightly different device, it might be in a collapsed icon at the bottom of your screen. It might be a sort of circular icon. If you click on it, it'll pop back up. And the chat box, if you do have it open, you'll see that I've pinned our email address to the very top of the chat box. So if you did have any questions following the class, good morning. If you did have any questions after the class, you can, of course, feel free to drop us an email if you would like. And we can do our best to answer those questions. But of course, you can also type in the chat box if you would like. Since next week is going to be our last class of the series, I did also put a link in the chat box for our future classes and workshops. So if you are interested in signing up for future classes, you can feel free to click on the link and then it'll take you to the website and then you can have a look. Yes, the classes are recorded. Great question. So all of these classes are recorded, but I must admit I've been pretty bad at uploading them to YouTube lately, but I will get to it hopefully next week sometime. So you should be able to get the link. You can send us an email if you would like the link, or it is also on our website under the events page where it says past recordings. But of course, if that's a bit confusing, don't worry, drop us an email and that's absolutely fine as well. And we can do our best to help you with that. Great. Okay. So given that next week is our last class, I do also want to mention that this is going to be our last exercise webinar for the rest of 2020. Although starting the week after next, so after this class is done, we do have a Dance to Holidays Nutcracker repertoire, but that would be the last sort of activity type exercise webinar, if you will, until the new year. So in the new year in January, we do have a hand and dexterity exercise series coming back. It was quite popular when we had it earlier in the summer. So if you missed it, or if you want to do the hand and dexterity class again, it's a good idea to sign up for that because I suspect it'll probably fill up quite quickly. Again, you can find that on our website, which is pinned to the very top of the chat box. If you look at my comment, it'll say the future classes and workshop website. Okay. Great. So let's talk about our freezing exercise class today. Now, I think some of you are new today, so welcome. But for those who were here for the last two sessions, welcome back. And we're going to be building on some of the skills that we learned last class. So if you remember last class, we talked a little bit about strategies to help you unfreeze your feet when you're walking to a chair. So a lot of the times you find that with freezing, it tends to happen when you're approaching a destination, such as like a door frame, or I guess a doorway rather than a door frame per se. So when you're approaching a door, or if you're approaching like a chair or a couch to sit in. So last time we worked on strategies to help you overcome that for when you're approaching a chair. So we're going to revisit that again today, but we'll also talk a little bit about strategies we can use when you're approaching a door frame or doorway. I keep saying door frame, doorway. So that if you are somebody who finds it quite difficult to walk through like a narrow hallway or going towards a door, then you can use some of these strategies and hopefully they will help. If there's any suggestions you'd like to see for the final class for certain things that you might come across that you freeze during and you would like to find strategies for that, please drop me an email and I will do my best to address that in our next class and I guess next and final class. Okay, well, let's get started. I'm going to have a stand up and I'll move back to my chair. So I hope you can all see me. Now for today's class, you're going to be using a chair to sit in. I've also got another chair on the side there that we're going to use in a second when we stand up. So if you ideally have a chair to sit in, but then also another one that we can use to hold on to when we stand, that would be great. If you don't have a chair, don't worry. You can also use a table, a wall, or something for you to hold on to. And we're also going to be using a block today, so you can see this block. You can use a tissue box at home or something for you to step over, basically. We want that visual target. Okay, let's get started. We're going to shuffle ourselves to the very front of our chair, so we don't want to be slouching in the chair or leaning to the side. We want to make sure we use our tummy muscles, sit up nice and tall, and shuffle ourselves forward to the very front of the chair. From here, we're going to drop our arms down by our sides, shoulders down, chest open, and we're going to keep ourselves as tall as possible. And we're going to float those arms up behind our head without the shoulder rising up. Then from here, we're going to squeeze those shoulders up to our ears as far as we can, and then drop them down again. And then we bring the arms all the way back down. We're going to repeat that again, just warming up the shoulders here. Bring the hand behind the head if you can, trying to open the elbows. We're going to lift our shoulders up to the ears, and then we're going to drop them again. Good. And then we're going to reach our arms all the way down. Good. So as we're doing this gentle movement for a bit of a warm up in the shoulder girdles, you want to really make sure we're sitting up nice and tall and we're not slouching as we're bringing the arms up and over. And as you're bringing your arms up behind your head, you want to try to keep the shoulders down until you choose to lift them up and down. So hopefully that makes sense. You want the shoulders to be down the whole time until our hands are behind the head, and then we lift them up and down. Good. Doesn't have to be fast. Nice and gentle, nice and slow is better. Really feel that distinction between the up and the down of the shoulders, reaching the arms all the way down. Let's do a few more here. That's it. Keep the spine nice and long, sitting nice and tall over those sit bones. Good, let's do one more. Good, reaching up and all the way back down. Good. This time, we're going to shuffle our bottoms to the back of the chair. So try not to use the arms. See if you can use just your bottom and your trunk muscles to shuffle back in the chair. Now, this is the only time I'm going to let you lean back into the chair. So you want your back against the chair, and you're going to bring those arms up again behind the head. This time, you're going to arch over the back of the chair to really look at the ceiling. So you're bringing your upper back over the chair into a stretch, and you're going to hold it here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and coming back up. Good. We're going to do that again. We're going to open those elbows out to the side, leaning back into the chair. You're going to bring your back over the chair, looking at the ceiling. Obviously being careful not to tip the chair back too far, but you're reaching your spine over the chair, and then we're coming back again. Good. Let's do one more of these. You should really feel quite nice in your back to be able to stretch, because a lot of the times we're very hunched forward. So it's pretty nice to open up the chest and stretch back a little bit more. Good. And back to the middle and dropping the arms, using the tummy muscles. Bring yourself back up, and then you're going to use your tummy muscles and your hips to shuffle yourself forward without using the arms. Good. And then when you're at the front of the chair, you're going to let your arms dangle by your side. And then we're going to float them up onto our hips. making sure our feet are nice and flat on the floor, a little bit wider than hip width apart. And we're going to reach one arm overhead and lean over to feel that stretch along the side and coming back. Now, if you're somebody who has shoulder issues and you can't reach up, don't worry. Rather than reaching up overhead, you can reach forward across as long as you're getting the arm up so that you can lean the body right over. So it's entirely up to you which version you would like to do. This is your exercise class, so do whatever you feel is comfortable but also challenges you a bit. Good. Let's keep going. Nice and gentle movement. Noticing here my breastbone is facing forward. I'm not turning down. I'm keeping my breastbone facing forward the whole time. So you get a true stretch along the side of your body rather than across the back there. Good. Well done. Let's do 6. 5. Shoulders away from the ears. 4. Good. 3. 2 more. 2. Really reach those fingertips away. Last one. Reach the fingertips away. And we come back to the middle. Okay. Now, we're going to continue on with our trunk stretch, and we're going to bring those arms up into fist by our face to do some gentle punching. Now, we're not punching forward. As we punch, we're going to take the arm and we're going to punch across the body, noticing here how I'm rotating as I'm punching. So I don't necessarily want you to punch as hard as you can because we're still trying to warm up, but I do want you to think about as you're punching, you're sitting up nice and tall and you're using your tummy muscles, using your body, and you're rotating the punch over, rotating that breastbone over. Now you might not get all the way across, that's fine. You can do a little bit of a diagonal like this, rather than all the way to the side, that's absolutely fine. But I just want you to start to get some rotation into the body here with movement. Still sitting up nice and tall. Almost think about your spine like a towel and you're wringing the towel. So you're wringing the spine. Your spine is nice and tall, but it's twisting on its axis. So we're not leaning forward as we're doing this. We're keeping tall and we're rotating the spine on its axis. Yeah? Good, well done. Are we still breathing? Good, let's do 4 more. 3 more. Last 2. Last 1. And we rest those arms down. Okay, we're gonna keep our spine nice and tall. We're thinking about balancing an imaginary book on our head. We're going to float the arms up in front of us like so. Oh, keep those arms up. Sorry, my screen just went a little bit funny. There we go. Okay. And from here, we're going to pull those elbows back into a reverse row. So you're going to keep the elbows wide, squeeze those shoulder blades together, and pull those elbows back. And then we're going to bring them forward. So noticing how as I'm doing this, let me turn sideways. As I'm doing the row, notice how this movement is not the same as this movement. So I don't want the tummy to go forward like that. You want to keep everything nice and still. It's just the shoulder blades. Can you see that? Shoulder blades pulling the elbows back. I'm squeezing the shoulder blades together rather than sticking my tummy out like this. Okay? So we're just squeezing the shoulder blades together. Now you'll notice that we're doing a lot of work for upper back and shoulders today. Or at least in the warm-up. And part of the reason for that is because a lot of the times we're very hunched over and it's very difficult for us to actually bring our back up and open up the chest without even realizing. Maybe you didn't even know this was difficult until you start doing it, but that's kind of the point. We're trying to realign the upper back a little bit by strengthening these muscles that are used to being like this. We want to go the opposite way, open the chest and squeeze those shoulder blades together. Good, keep going. Let's do last 5. Keep those ribs in. Last 4, squeezing the shoulder blades together. Last 3, wide elbows. Last 2. Good, 1 more. And rest those arms. Okay, now I'm gonna turn back around. So now we're going to keep our feet flat on the floor. We're gonna place our hands across our chest. We did this last week and the week before, so hopefully you remember. We are keeping our spine nice and tall, and I want you to imagine there's a light coming out of the top of your head and it's pointing up at the ceiling, so like a torch. From here, you're going to try to use your trunk muscles and hinge at the hips to draw a circle on the ceiling with that torch light on the top of your head. You can see here how this movement that I'm doing here is not the same as this. Can you see that? So what I'm doing now is what we don't want. So I don't want you to use the ribs and just circle in your body. I want you to keep your body nice and long, nice and stiff, okay? Only letting yourself circle around using the hips and the sitting bones. So this movement is what we want. This movement is what we don't want, okay? We're not doing a dance. You want to use the whole body as we're doing the circle, and just go as wide, or sorry, as big as you can with the circle without losing your balance. So you'll probably notice with the legs wide, it's a little bit easier than if you were to squeeze your legs in together. So you can try that if you like. If you bring your legs in together and then you try to do that circle, it's a little bit harder for you to balance without turning into that rib rotation that we don't want. Okay, so whichever version you prefer is absolutely fine. Just think about your upper body being stiff as a board and you're only moving from the hips. So you're essentially shifting your way in a circle over your sit bones. Good. Let's try going in the other direction. So we'll do the same thing, but in the other direction this time. Good. You might find that one direction is a little bit harder than the other, and that's fine. We can't all have symmetrical bodies. It's just not possible. So it's absolutely fine if one side feels more difficult. Just try your best to make the circle as big as possible and making sure it's actually a circle and not an oval or a triangle or a square, but you want that nice round feeling in that rotation. So you want to go all the way around, getting all sides of the circle. Or I guess the circle doesn't have sides, but you know what I mean. Good. One more. Good, and we come back to the middle. This time, we're going to write our name on the ceiling. Imagine that torchlight pointing up at the ceiling. You're going to use the same principle we just did, except rather than going in a circle, you're going to write your first and last name as big as you can. Now, if you have a really short name like me, you can, of course, write your first and last name 2 times. But everybody else, you can try once. Trying to move as big as you can. Remembering this is not about speed, right? So in our freezing class, we never want to go at a fast pace, because keep in mind that the faster you go, the more likely you are to bring on your freezing response, right? So we don't want that. We want to go slow, and we want to think about the quality of movement, especially if you're someone who experiences freezing. Good, so I'm on my second round now of my name. If you're already finished and you're sitting and you're twiddling your thumbs, you can feel free to do another round of your first and last name. Good job, everybody. Well done. It's harder than it looks, hey? You can really feel that in the upper body and your trunk muscles. And this is really great because it helps you be able to weight shift over your base of support for when we stand up. Good, well done. And we're going to rest there. Good. Now, I'm going to turn my chair to the side. You can stay where you are. We're going to now prepare our sit to stand. So, for those who were here last week and the week before, you probably know this really well already. If you already know what to do for your sit to stand, you can feel free to start, but I'm going to explain this for people who are new. Okay, you're going to shuffle to the front of your chair, placing the feet on the floor. Now, when we do our sit to stand today, what I don't want to see is us do this and then try to pull ourselves up, right? So we want to make sure we can going with our sit to stands. So now we're thinking about bringing our weight over our base of support as the most important thing when you're doing your sit to stand. So you're going to spring your chest forward, imagining someone grabs you at the front of the shirt and they're pulling you forward as far as you can, okay? So you're bringing your chest over your legs so much so that you place your weight right over both of your feet. Then from here, you're going to push down into the floor as hard as you can, tucking that bottom in, chest up to stand, okay? You can have something in front of you if you feel you need to hold on, but I don't want you to grab hold and pull yourself up. Okay, let's try that again. Same thing in reverse. Bend those knees, stick the bottom back. So I still have my center of gravity over both of my legs as I'm doing this sit back down kind of motion. Try it again. You're bringing your weight over your legs, and you're going to push the floor away from you as hard as you can. Stick that bottom in order to stand nice and tall. Hold on if you need to. And then we're going to stick that bottom back and have a sit back down. Okay, so keep trying in your own time, noticing how this sit to stand is very slow and we're not swinging and using momentum to get ourselves up, but you're really trying to use the strength of your legs and your tummy muscles and your back muscles in order to get you up and standing without this kind of movement to get up, okay? So really think about bringing your weight over your base of support as you're standing. Good. So if you are somebody who feels your balance is a major issue as you're doing this, for peace of mind, you can have something in front of you, and just in case you need to hold on. But even if it's really slow and you need a little bit of support in your arms, that's absolutely fine, because I really want you to think about bringing the weight over your legs and using the strength of your legs to get yourself up in standing. So this is your ability to be able to keep your center of gravity over your base of support without losing balance, right? Really important. Let's do a few more here in your own time, thinking about using the strength of your legs as you're doing this movement. Making sure when you are standing, your chest is up, your bottom is tucked in. We're standing as tall as we can possibly go. On the next one, you're going to stay standing. Stick that bottom in, chest open, head up nice and tall, stay standing, okay? Now, I'm going to move my chairs a little bit. So, the next thing we're going to do now that we're standing is we're going to practice our turning that we learned last time. So, I'm going to put one chair on either side, and the reason I have this is because you remember last time we were talking about how when you turn, sometimes it's easy to freeze. So instead of just thinking we're turning on the spot, we're going to sway side to side. So you want to imagine, let me put this a little bit further away. I want you to imagine your palm tree swaying in the wind, and the swaying movement can be pretty small to start with. Just think you're swaying in the wind. If a palm tree doesn't work, maybe a blade of grass or something like that. Anything you want to think about, as long as you're swaying in the wind. And this is us beginning to be able to weight shift on our legs. The slower, the better. So I don't want to see this. That's too fast. Go slower. Really take your time as you place weight over each of your legs. And I want you to think about weight shifting in that kind of wind-swept motion. And the reason I have a chair on either side is just so that way you can use that as a visual target to try to touch either chair as you're swaying. So that's how far you should be swaying. Same thing, if you want to do this in the middle of a doorway, you can try to sway side to side from door frame to door frame. But of course, that's probably a little bit more narrow. You might not get as much of a sway. Good, well done. And this is not a new movement that we're doing. We did it last week and I think the week before. So we're going to start to make this a little bit more advanced if you would like. If you want to just stay here, absolutely fine. But for those who want to take it up and make it a little bit more challenging, I want you to continue the swaying movement, but you're going to turn. So as you're turning, of course, the chairs are going to stay where they are, but I want you to keep imagining you got a chair on either side and you're swaying and touching the chair on either side. So imagine the chair on either side, and you're really thinking about that visual image of that palm tree swaying in the wind, or a blade of grass, or maybe some other plant or something swaying in the wind. And as you're doing this, you want to try to make sure your chest is up nice and tall, and we're not starting to do this as we sway. But you want to tuck that bottom in. You're bringing your entire center of gravity over side to side, okay? So you're shifting your weight of gravity, or your center of gravity, sorry. I was going to say weight shift and center of gravity at the same time. But you're bringing your center of gravity to either side. And once you've done a whole circle, doing that swaying motion, I want you to try and reverse it. So same thing, going in the opposite direction, swaying side to side. The slower, the better, because the faster you go, the more likely you're going to bring on a freezing episode. So it's best to go slower and really think about the weight shift. Really think about that calm wind blowing the plant in the wind, side to side. Keeping that chest up, bottom tucked in. Keep breathing. I know sometimes when we concentrate on these kind of activities, we forget to breathe. So please make sure you are breathing. Good. And we'll just do one more in each direction. So once you've done that circle, go in the other direction again. Really imagining that palm tree in the wind visual that we were talking about. The slower, the better. I know sometimes when you do it slow, it's a little bit harder to balance, but try your best to stay right over that leg. You're keeping your weight in between your legs, you're just shifting it side to side. Good. We're going to do one more in the other direction, and then we'll move on to something else. Or actually, we're going to add on first and then move on to something else. But let's do one more circle with this. Really getting the hang of that weight shift. Really being able to move side to side. Transfer that center of gravity from leg to leg. Good, well done, everybody. I know this one's tough. Okay, we're gonna stop here for a second. So we're gonna carry on practicing our turns, except this time, rather than swaying side to side with our legs relatively straight, we're still going to sway, but we're going to stomp our feet. So let's just do it on the spot first. So please be careful if you're somebody with ouchy foot or you have some kind of injury. You don't have to stomp very hard, but the idea is you're swaying side to side and you're stomping. Okay, lift those knees high if you can. If you need a visual, think about lifting your knees to the height of the chair or the height of a walker or something you have around you that you can use as a visual. And you're just going to stomp the legs as you're swaying side to side now. So earlier we were doing this, still the same, except we're stomping, okay? And as you're doing the swaying stomp movement, you want to try to get both knees up just as high as the other one. And then when you're comfortable, you're going to start turning again with stomps this time. I know this is a little bit strange, but just bear with me. Remember, slow, right? So we're not marching as fast as we can. We're thinking about stomping at a rhythmic pace. Lifting the knees up. Think about making some noise on the floor. Apologies if you have downstairs neighbors. All the way around. And then you're going to turn the other direction. So please feel free to do this slow. You don't have to do it as fast as I'm doing it. If you need to go slower, in your own time, turning once in each direction. If you do freeze, think about that swaying motion. So even though we're technically marching to turn now, we're still imagining that swaying motion that gets us around. We're going to do one more on each side. So the reason we start with a general sway is just for you to be able to overcome the freezing episode and weight shift enough in order to get yourself moving again. But once you've got the hang of that, you can start to keep the sway, but you're going to start to lift the feet a little bit higher off the ground, so it's almost like you're doing a bit of a march, except you're still swaying side to side, and then you can start walking again using this technique. So if you ever do find that you do get frozen, just stop on the spot for a few seconds, take a few deep breaths, maybe do something else like a few knee bends where you can move your arms a couple of times without the legs moving, and then you start to sway side to side, starting small and then getting bigger and bigger until you're weight shifting enough to then take a step and walk forward, okay? Okay, great. So now we're going to use our little block or a tissue box or whatever you have at home. Just going to move the chairs out a little bit. Okay, so you can see here I've got my block right here. I'm standing on one side of the block, so you can see the block here, right? Okay, you're going to lift the knee as high as the chair you're holding on to, and you're going to step it out as far as you can so that the block is right in the middle of your legs. And then you're going to take your second leg and lift it just as high and step it in. Okay, we're going to practice sidestepping. Try it again. Lift that leg as high as you can, stepping over the object. And then the second leg, same thing, lifting up as high as you can, stepping back down. Good. Try it again. Lift the leg as high as you can. And then same thing on the other side. Good. So we're not doing this fast. Please feel free to do this slow. The emphasis here is symmetry in the legs. So remember, a freezing episode tends to be brought on by fast asymmetrical steps, such as when you're turning. Hence why it happens more when you're turning or when you're approaching a destination. So we're going to work on the symmetry here of the legs, getting them to match each other in this movement. So lifting the legs just as high as each other and stepping out as far as each other. And you'll probably find one side is worse than the other, and that's absolutely fine. On the side that you can't lift your leg as high or can't step as far, I just want you to think about it that much more, okay? I want you to concentrate on that side a little bit more to really try your best to match the height of both legs and the step length of both legs. Good, well done. Still with me? Doing really good, everybody. I know these seem simple, but when you're actually doing them, they're pretty hard, and you do get tired doing them. So don't worry. Take your time. If you need to stop and have a rest, please feel free to. But if you can carry on, see if you can push through it. Trying to get those legs to be as equal as possible. Good job. Let's do one more on each side. And as you're stepping out, you can see if you can hold this position for a couple seconds and then bring the second leg in. Because what you'll probably find is people will do this and they'll step over right away because you just have a tough time balancing with the legs open. But see if you can hold that for a few seconds. Good. And rest. Okay. We're going to move the block now. Now, you're going to pretend the block is still there, okay? You just can't see it right now, but you're going to imagine it's still there. Now, I'm placing one chair in front and one chair behind because I want there to be a narrow pathway for me to practice. So you're going to imagine this narrow bit of chairs, the space between is like a doorway. So we're going to start on one side, and what we're going to do is we're going to imagine the block. We're going to imagine the block we just used is still there, but the block, there's multiple, and they're every step of the way. So I want you to think about lifting that leg nice and high, stepping over the imaginary block, and then bring the second leg in. You're going to keep going. You're going to sidestep across this narrow space all the way to the other side. Take it slow. Remember, the faster you go and the more asymmetrical your steps are, the more likely you'll trigger a freezing episode. So we're trying to go slow, and we're going to try to make the steps as symmetrical as possible. And then when you get to the other side, you're going to repeat in reverse. So same thing, stepping over and in. So of course, it'll be more difficult the more narrow the space is, because when a space is narrow, we tend to have issues diverting our attention between the space, judging the space versus what we're doing with the body. So hence why we freeze a lot when we get to doorways. So this is a good way to practice getting across a doorway, is rather than walking forward through it, if you always freeze when you do that, try to see if you can sidestep through it. I know it seems a little bit silly, but if it stops you from freezing and you can still get through the doorway, you may as well try the sidestepping. And then eventually, when you get a little bit better with the mobility and with the ability to weight shift, you can then start walking forward. Good, keep going. Take your time. You don't have to do as fast as me, or you might be doing it faster because your space is more narrow, so you go across a little bit quicker, but it's okay. Just take your time, do it at a pace that works for you, really thinking about the imaginary block that you're stepping over with each step. Think about lifting the legs nice and high, getting the legs to be as symmetrical as possible in terms of its step length and the height of the feet clearance off the floor. Good. And during the week, if you would like to try this through an actual doorway, because I assume you're probably not doing it across the doorway right now, given that you have to look at your computer screen or your tablet screen. But if over the weekend you would like to try doing this through an actual doorway, please feel free and let me know how it goes. And you can use the same technique for other areas of the home that you might freeze. So for example, walking down a narrow hallway, you can try sidestepping, or walking through your narrow kitchen, you can try sidestepping. So any narrow spaces that you tend to freeze, sidestepping is a really great way to break that up. Hopefully you're still with me. I know I talk a lot. We'll do a few more here and then we'll move on. Doing really good so far, everyone. And of course, if you're someone who needs to hold on to a walker, this is a little bit tough because you have to pick up your walker every time you go across. Or you can use a cane or something like that. But you can absolutely do this holding onto a wall as well. Nice and slow, getting the legs as symmetrical as possible. Good. Okay, and rest. Okay, good. Hopefully you're all doing okay so far. Now, we're going to revisit the chair technique that we did last time. So, I have a band here, not because we're using the band to exercise, but I'm just using it to show you what I'm going to do on the floor. So you'll probably remember we talked about last time, if you're someone who freezes when you're approaching a chair, a really good strategy to use is rather than going straight for the chair and then trying to turn around and sit, think about doing sidestepping like a U shape across the chair like this. So a U shape in front of the chair. So I'm using the band just to show you what I mean. So you can see here with my band, I know it's pretty small, but hopefully you can see. Can you see that it's a U shape like this? Yeah. So we're going to practice this U shape. So again, you're sidestepping, okay? So your butt should be facing the chair when you're doing the U. So I don't want you to do the U shape this way. If you're not facing the chair, you're going the other way, okay? So you're going to sidestep exactly like what we did earlier, lifting up the legs. Except this time, as you're sidestepping in a U shape. Hopefully that makes sense. Facing away from the chair, right? And then you're going to do the same thing the other way, thinking about using this U shape as a way to get you in front of the chair. So we're going to ignore the chair for now. It's there. We're going to keep doing that U shape a few more times before we practice getting to the actual chair. Good. Now, this is probably easier for you if you did have some kind of a marker on the floor, because it's sometimes hard for us to imagine the U shape. But if you had something like tape or something like that marks the floor, it might be a little bit easier. So another thing you can think about is if you have a favorite armchair that you always sit in, but then you always get frozen going to the armchair. Perhaps if you had some Scotch tape or something like that, or masking tape, you can tape a U in front of that chair that you always have issues with. So whenever you do approach the chair, you can use this technique to help you unfreeze and be able to sit down in the chair. So we'll do this a few more times, and then we'll actually practice approaching the chair. So again, please feel free to do this slow. You don't have to do it fast. But of course, if you want to do it faster, you can. We just need to be mindful not to bring on your freezing episode. Well done, everybody. Let's do one more. Good, and rest. Okay, so now I'm going to move my chair to the side, and I'm still gonna use that band to help me with the U shape, except this time we're going to practice approaching the chair. So you can see here, there's my chair, there's a U shape on the floor still, and I'm going to practice walking to the chair. So I'm gonna walk facing the chair. Let me move it back a little bit. I'm going to walk towards the chair, and as I walk towards the chair, I'm going to start that U shape, facing away from the chair. When I approach the chair, I'm going to do that U shape, sidestepping to the middle, and then when the chair is behind you, I want you to sit down using the same technique we had before, keeping our weight over our legs. We're not falling back in the chair. We're keeping our weight over our legs until the very last second where our bottom touches the chair. Okay? Same thing, standing up, bring your weight over your legs. We're not using momentum or grabbing something to pull us up, but instead we're controlling this movement by bringing our weight over our legs and then push the floor away from you as hard as you can to stand, and then we're going to walk away from the chair. Now, if you're having issues initiating that walk, imagine the block is in front of you and you're trying to step over the block. Okay, then when we get to the other side, you can either use your swaying motion to turn back around, or imagine another U here that you're using to turn around. So sidestepping around or swaying to turn, or if you don't freeze when you turn, feel free to just turn around. And then we do the same thing again, walking towards the chair, and then you're going to start the sidestepping with the U shape when you get towards the chair. And then when you get to the middle, you're going to slowly have a sit down. Good. And then you're going to stand back up again, keeping the weight over the legs. And then we're going to walk forward again. If you freeze here, imagine the block is in front of you and you're stepping over it. Okay, and then you walk to the other side again. When you get to the other side, you can either sway, like so, to turn around, to face the chair, to start again, or you can think about sidestepping in that U shape in order to turn. And then you start again. So let's do this a few times in your own time, and then we'll add a little bit of a challenge task. Well done, everybody. Really trying to get those steps as even as possible. Going slow so we don't trigger a freezing episode. If your feet get stuck, imagine you're stepping over something. Let's do one more and then we'll add on. So if you're having a hard time with this, don't worry. It's pretty hard to imagine the U shape and what you're supposed to do, so it might be a better idea to actually have some tape on the floor to help you, or something visual. Okay, now we're going to do the same activity we just did, the walking away from the chair, turning around, coming back to the chair and sidestepping to sit,
Same thing, except this time we're adding in a cognitive task as well. So you'll probably remember last time we talked about how freezing is not necessarily just a physical problem. It's actually more a cognitive problem as well, where your brain has inability to divert attention to different tasks. Hence why you happen to freeze more in situations where your surrounding is a little bit more complex or where there's some kind of problem solving needed. So we're going to do the same movement, but this time you're going to say out loud as many names, people's names as you can think of from the letter A to Z. Okay, so for example, starting with A, I might say Annabelle, and then B, I might say Barbara. C, I might say Catherine, and so on and so on, okay? So as you're doing the movement, I want you to try to say out loud as many names as you can think of, starting from the letter A all the way to Z without the feet stopping, okay? So I don't want you to stop and think, but you want to keep the legs going the whole time. So this is your practice for your brain's ability to divert attention between the cognitive thought and the physical task, okay? So I'm going to stop talking now for a few minutes, just so you can practice doing this movement while thinking about the names to say, okay? Trying to keep the feet moving as you say the names from the letters A all the way to Z. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking now, let you concentrate. Good job, everybody. Keep going. Keep the feet moving. Don't stop just because we're thinking. Well done, everyone. Let's do one more round here of our standing and walking to and away from the chair. Last round. Keep the thought process going. Keep saying out loud those names in the alphabet. And rest. Good. On your next sit in the chair, please stay there. I'm going to move my chair just so you can see me better. But whenever you sit down, please stay there. Okay. Good. So we're going to do a little bit of a cool down stretch now. You've done very well today. I know those exercises were not the easiest. So well done for joining us. I'm going to get you to shuffle forwards in the chair, just so that way we're not leaning too far back. And we're going to separate those legs slightly wider than your hips. And we're going to relax the arms in the middle. We're going to bend forward at the hips, and we're going to try to reach down towards the floor as far as you can. And then we're going to reach up and try to reach for the ceiling as far as you can. And then the same thing, trying to touch the floor. And then trying to touch that ceiling, reaching up as far as you can. And again, touching the floor.
And touching the ceiling, reaching up as far as you can. One more. Touch the floor. And reach up to touch the ceiling. Stretch those arms up and relax. We're going to bring the legs a little bit wider. Keep your back nice and tall, hands on your knees. We're going to hinge forward at the hips, keeping our spine nice and long. Push down with your hands into those legs to feel an inner thigh stretch. So use your hands to push those legs out even further. Keep your spine nice and long. Good. Holding for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and coming back up. Bring those legs back in. We're going to straighten one of the legs forward. So one leg bent, the other one forward. Keep your hips as tall as you can. Your chest as tall as you can. And then you're going to hinge at the hips forward towards that straightened knee to feel a stretch at the back of the thigh. Let me turn sideways. You stay where you are. Keep going. So from the side, it looks like this. You're keeping one leg straight, hinging forward. And then you come back up and switch legs. Other side, straighten that leg. Body up nice and tall, hinge forward at the hips. And coming back again. Good. Let's do one more on either side. Feeling that stretch at the back of the knee and back of the thigh. Good. Last one. And coming back up. Good. Stay where you are. Let me turn my chair around. This time, you're going to bring one of your hands to the outside of the opposite knee, and the remaining hand reach back around to grab hold of the chair. You're going to sit up nice and tall. Using your hands, you're going to pull yourself over into a rotation stretch. Sitting up nice and tall, imagining that spine being a towel that you're wringing. So it's rotating on its axis on the spot for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Good. Same thing, other side. Other hand to the opposite knee. And then you're going to reach around to grab the chair, sitting up nice and tall. Use your hands to pull yourself over into a rotation. Good. Nice and tall. Shoulders away from the ears for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. We're going to bring the legs a little bit further apart. Drop the arms. We're going to take a deep breath in. Sweep the arms up. And breathing out. And again, breath in. And out. One more. Breath in. And all the way out. And you are done. Thank you so much for joining us today. I do apologize about the freezing earlier. My internet's a little bit unsteady right now, but hopefully it wasn't too disruptive for you all. Thank you very much for joining us for our 3rd class. And I will see you next week for our final session. So remember, if you do have any questions or if you had anything specific that you wanted to share, so if you want to learn about strategies to help you overcome freezing in other areas that is not approaching a chair or going through a doorway, please let me know and we can try to see whether we can maybe talk about those strategies next time. Okay, so happy Halloween. So somebody says, I freeze in corners, any hints to get out? Okay, so when you're in a corner, so like a corner like that, right? Do you mean as in when you're facing a corner, when you're walking towards a corner? Although I guess it doesn't really matter. So when you're in a corner, if you're having issues getting out, you can, first of all, if you're facing a corner or you need to turn yourself in some way to get out of the corner, a really good way to do that would be exactly like what we said before, where you
Well, first of all, if you're frozen, stay calm. Stop trying to move for a second, because the more you try to make yourself move to come out of the freezing, sometimes the worse it gets. So if you're frozen, just stop for a second. You can take a couple deep breaths in, keep your feet there. Don't try to move them. Take a couple deep breaths, and then maybe bend them a few times, or you can swing your arms a few times. Do something else, anything at all, distract the brain. And then when you restart again, you can try to do the palm tree in the wind like we talk about, where you think about weight shifting on the spot. Don't turn yet. Just think about weight shifting on the spot first. Just weight shift on the spot, okay? And then as you make the movement bigger and bigger, and you can actually start to weight shift more onto either side, you can then start to try to turn in the weight shifting. So the turning strategy we learned earlier is really helpful for the majority of the freezing episodes that you experience, especially when you're in a certain area and you need to get out, okay? So think about that weight shifting palm tree to help you get out. Or same thing, if you can sidestep, imagine a circle, okay? That's a good way to turn to. Imagine a circle on the floor and you're facing the middle of the circle. Sidestep along the circle until you get to the point where you're out, when you turn enough to get out, and then you can step forward, or you can keep sidestepping out of that corner. Hopefully that makes sense. So when you're frozen and you need to change directions or get out, you can sidestep or think about the swing to help you then be able to weight shift enough to then get the legs going and get out. When you stop in a corner. Yeah, so after you stop and you want to restart the step, same thing, you probably need to turn around. So either sidestep in that circle or think about the sway, okay? Or if none of that works, you can even try stepping backwards instead. So basically anything, basically whenever you freeze, you want to stop what you're doing, stop trying to move, take a couple deep breaths, let the brain relax, let yourself calm down, because the more stressed you are or the more anxious you are, the worse the episode is, okay? So calm yourself down first and then try again stepping. If that doesn't work, use a different strategy to still keep yourself moving, but maybe not forward. So i.e. swaying to turn, sidestepping, stepping backwards. You can even try diagonal, things like that to just get out of that loop. Okay, I think there was another question I saw. Okay, so someone says, is shuffle stepping the same as freezing? Yes and no. Okay, so if you're someone who just walks with a shuffle gait, that's pretty common in Parkinson's, which just means that you need to practice. It means that your amplitude of movement is smaller, so hence why the feet clearance is not very good and you're shuffling. But if you're still able to get yourself forward in the shuffle, that's not freezing. Freezing is when you are shuffling, but you're starting to not propel forward anymore. That's more freezing. But of course, shuffling could also be a precursor to freezing, right? So keep in mind, ironically, when you freeze, your steps are asymmetrical, they're very quick, and they're very shuffling, okay? So that's what happens when you freeze. But ironically, if you make yourself do those things, you'll also trigger a freezing episode. So if you stood up right now and you made yourself walk really quick and in very asymmetrical steps, you'll also bring on your freezing episode. So essentially what you're trying to do is increase the amplitude of the movement of your legs, stepping higher. So think about stepping over something, right? Making it a wider step, a bigger foot clearance, and trying to get both sides as even as possible in order to decrease the freezing episodes. And then, of course, when they do happen, use these strategies to help get out of it. Hopefully that makes sense. So someone says, singing or counting helps, as I learned from a freezing tip sheet. Yeah, perfect. So if you are frozen, you can also cue yourself by singing a song and trying to step to the beat of the song, or you can try stepping to, something in your head like right, left, or 1, 2, 1, 2. So things like that. But of course, you'll probably find when you do cueing like that, it initially might work really well, but the longer you use the same cues, the effects wear off over time, unfortunately. And it's just because when we get so used to it, it becomes more automatic, and the automatic process in our brain, in our body, is the one that's not functioning in Parkinson's. So you always have to kind of switch up the cues and make them more novel, so that your body can still do them and it won't lose its effect over time. And of course, having someone
cue you is also gives you a lot stronger response than you doing yourself. But by all means, some people listen to music as they're walking outside just for the beat. So they ever get stuck, they just think, okay, step with the beat, and then they start stepping with the beat. So things like that. Okay. Someone says using Nordic poles can help people improve their stride. Yeah, absolutely. So Nordic poles is really good as well because it helps you with that opposition of the arms and it helps you with that step of the legs. Yep, absolutely. How often should one do these exercises? Okay, so exercises in general, you want to be doing 150 minutes a week of some kind of aerobic exercise. So 150 minutes, 150, that's 2.5 hours a week, not a day, a week. That's what you're generally aiming for. Now, of course, not everyone is going to be able to do high level exercise where you're breaking out with sweat all the time necessarily, but any form of exercise, as long as you try to challenge yourself, as long as they're hard and they're not something that you can do in your sleep, is fine as well. So you're aiming for 2.5 hours a week, and you can break that up however you'd like. Now, in terms of freezing exercises, freezing exercises, you don't necessarily have to do 150 minutes a week like your general aerobic exercises, but you can do them more so to help you overcome those freezing, the times that you freeze inside your home or outside your home. So talking about all the strategies that we mentioned, swaying to weight shift on the spot, and then when you get enough weight shift, you can start to walk with the weight shifting or turn, sidestepping to get out of a situation where you just can't step forward. When you're approaching a chair, use that U shape, sidestepping across the doorway. So things like that are all things that you can practice in order to get it ingrained into the head so you know how to use them when you do come across those freezing episodes, if that makes sense. So it's not like you have to do them all the time, but I would say if freezing is a real issue for you, practice the strategies until you're comfortable enough using them on your own when you are in a frozen situation. Hopefully that makes sense. I just tried swaying when stuck in a corner. It worked. Perfect. Yeah, great. That's great. Exactly. Okay, great. Well, if you have any other questions, please feel free to send me an email. I do have it pinned at the very top of the chat box, which is info@parkinson.bc.ca. Or if there's any other strategies you would like to learn specific to freezing situations, let me know and I'll try to include them for our next session. So like I mentioned before, the class is recorded, so you can feel free to look on YouTube. Hopefully I'll have them up next week. I have been pretty bad at uploading them recently, I must say, but hopefully I'll have them all up next week so that way you can follow them if you like. And if you do have any suggestions for any future webinars you would like to see, let us know and we'll try to add them in. Okay, well, I've gone over time. I'm so sorry. Thank you very much for joining us today, everybody. And I do apologize again about the internet dropout issue in the middle, but hopefully it wasn't too disruptive. And I will see you all next class. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a good rest of the week and a weekend, and I will see you next Thursday. Bye, everybody.